Hello and welcome to Upper Pen. My name is Dakota, and today I am talking with Ember Holt about her newest release. Brutal Rival is the title, and you can get it either on Amazon or her website, emberholtwrites.com, correct?
That's correct.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here, Ember.
Yeah, it's great to be here and chat. Let's do that.
So, what is the premise of Brutal Rival?
Well, I think the two hook lines of the blurb kind of compartmentalize everything, which is he wants his bloodthirsty rival for a wife. She only wants the queen's head on a pike. It's a Victorian era magical world, dark fantasy romance where the FMC wants to get revenge for her attempted assassination, and the MMC is like a rival gang lord who lives in the area, discovers her secret, and then it's like, I can't help myself. She's just too hot. I gotta have her.
So the book started out very intense. Right. The first chapter, the Scarlet is the main female character, and she is going to give some guy a blowjob, but also use his cum as a magic source.
Yep, that's exactly correct. That's exactly correct. So that's her secret, is that her she's a princess of the kingdom. Her mother tried to have her assassinated because she believed that she was non-magical. And you cannot have a non-magical queen sitting on the throne. That's just weakness. Can't have it. So, but the secret was that Scarlet isn't non-magical. It's just she requires samples from other people to absorb their magic. And the easiest way to get those samples as a woman is through their penis.
Yeah, I get it. Makes sense.
A route of least resistance.
Yeah, but then it quickly turns because Zane, the main male character, comes around the corner and is like, "No, no, I don't like
Not
what's
in my
happening."
territory.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he chops the guy's head off, I believe,
Mhm.
and
Yep.
that's chapter one.
Yeah. That's chapter one. Yeah, I wanted the touch her and die vibe to be very present, very immediate.
That works. A lot of people love that trope too. Holy cramoly.
I'm a fan of it myself.
Yeah, I definitely like it. It's one of the reasons I picked it up, and I was like, oh, it's got a lot going on, and it's just started, so.
Yeah, I'm like I like to start my books off fast paced and like keep that pace and keep escalating that pace. So,
Do you ever find that challenging or like limiting in some ways?
oh yes. Yes, indeed. So the next book in this series is called Feral Guardian, and it does not start off as punchy. Not even close. And I was like, well, I did my best, and here we are. So this is just the story we're telling.
So that one, it follows Scarlett's sister
Mhm.
and her bodyguard, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
is it starting because in this one they mention like a murder attempt by the queen? Does it start with them dealing with that or a little bit before, a little after?
The next one will start with the bodyguard coming to retrieve the sister Lily from her magical academy school that she was
Yeah.
sent to work on her manners. Um, yeah, so it's just a little bit of a slower start since he like doesn't get there. It's just kind of him wandering around the city, kind of like doing a little bit of scene setting. Since each one of these books in the series are supposed to be fairly standalone, I need that like chapter or two in the beginning to kind of do the setup again, but in a different way.
So that makes me that makes me think of the setting for Brutal Rival because it is very much like a gothic version of the Crow setting to me. Do you remember the Crow?
I do, yeah.
So it's very rainy, very dark, lots of
Mhm.
mob bosses.
Yeah,
Yeah, I loved it
yeah.
so much.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, I don't know what made me want to go with Victorian era. I've always had like a fascination with steampunk stuff. And so I was like, you know what? I've never done a Victorian era anything, and I had recently been reading a lot of mafia romance books, so I'm like, well, getting thrown in the mix too. And then, yeah, so it's just like a big pot of everything I've read recently.
Um, so one of the buildings is kind of sentient. Um, I don't want to go too far into it because it's pretty far in the book that you find that out. But how how do you work with a sentient building?
How do I, as an author, work with the sentient?
Yes.
Well, so a lot of the sentient building is actually called Uriksta, which is just meaning like infused with so much magic that it has grown sort of an awareness. I guess I'll just drop a bunch of spoilers. Scarlet's blade, Spellbreaker, is also Uriksta and is close to that level of sentience. It doesn't speak or manifest like the sentient building does, but it gives her warnings and like communicates to her in the ways that I guess a dagger can communicate. It gives her essentially like spidey senses, kind of like vibrates on her hip when it's like, yo dog, something's not right. Something's not right here. But yeah, no, sorry, I just like bonked my knee. How I deal with a sentient building? Well, I just try to imagine what it would be like to like be stuck in one place and be stuck in one place for a very, very long time and observe things from like a limited view space, but hear lots of things coming and going and like have an understanding of the world in a longer time frame. I guess like, yeah, so the the building's goals are just sort of like the worse things are off for the people who inhabit me, the worse time I have.
Yeah.
So I want to make things better.
It seems like it could very easily turn into kind of like a world breaking thing if you let it though, because this building has a lot of physical power. And I think I would be tempted to just keep going and like, oh no, it just is invincible. Can't do anything. So yeah.
I don't
Um
want to, sorry,
no,
I'm like
you're good.
trying to hold
Don't
in,
don't say it. No, it's fine.
I'm trying to hold in deep secrets. Deep, but you're like dancing around a very interesting component to the story that that's coming about. I'm guessing you're thinking somewhere along the lines of what I've been building towards.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So it's really hard to talk about, but
I know I was like, I don't want to give any spoilers, but
so it's like an interesting facet to this world, this magic. And each person has their own magic that they is it like an inherited magic or is it different for every person? How's that work?
so I had it just be different for every person. I wanted a lower rules and restrictions type magic system for this time around. All of the books I've written previously, I always have like very, very strict rules, like it's a balanced, rigid system. Um, and yeah, and this time around, I was just like, you know what? I want anybody to be able to do anything, and I just want it to like be fun and have a good time. Just be fun and have a good time. But yeah, everyone has like a specific type of power that they can do, and usually it's just that. But then there's slight variations. There's like a high blood magus, which is like, or magus, magus. I don't even know how to say any of my own words out loud.
It's okay. You don't have to
Um,
say them out loud most of the time.
Probably magus would be the less gross way to say that word. Magus kind of sounds like maggot, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
Anyways, but high bloods, they can do other things like ward breaking and healing. And like low bloods are usually called clowns because their magic is like parlor tricky and just dumb and not actually useful. Like inherently being able to understand the desires of chickens, that's pretty clownish. It's pretty clownish. But yeah, something I'm really excited for in the next book in this series is that I touch on the gods a lot more, which is kind of where some powers like get their flavor from.
Okay, that's fantastic because this one had a lot of world building, and it had a lot of like interpersonal relationship stuff. So I'm excited to see more about like what's going on.
Yeah, each book is definitely going to focus on a different aspect of the world building and like grow it up more. So like reading each individual book, you get a slice, but it doesn't feel incomplete. It just feels like there's vastly much more out there to know about that just can't fit in one book. There it is. So yeah, each book will explore something different.
So, Zane, the main male character, is a mob boss. He's got some spiky protrusion things coming out of his back that he uses like spider legs, which creeped me out, by the way. Spiders are awful. So weird.
Sorry, that's why it's a trigger warning.
I did love the trigger warning list in the front. Just email me if you find more.
Yeah, so I can just grow the list to keep adding to it.
But you seem to like morally gray heroes. So what is the draw towards them?
Well, my personal draw towards morally great heroes, characters, is that they have very few limitations, which allows more possibilities for plot and story, because they might choose the morally white choice sometimes. Just it's more like they're really in it for themselves until they're in it for the person they care more about than themselves, which is their love interest. And I think playing on that trope, like obviously it's not good to burn the world down for one person, not in real life.
No.
But in our fantasy lands, it's totally okay to want to be the object of someone's desire so greatly that they will do anything and kill anyone to keep you safe. So that's
Yeah.
why morally gray is more fun.
Also, they're not like a stick in the mud.
That's true. Like the lawful good paladin type is very predictable. There's
Yeah.
very few things that they can do, very few choices they can make. It's fun to break them.
Yeah.
I kind of want to write one of those. It's not in this series because there's just no space for a lawful good paladin. But I would love to write one and break one.
I think they're best as like comedy relief, honestly. Um, so
I can see that.
yeah.
The only ones I've ever met through D&D, really, because I don't read many
Yeah.
lawful good paladins either. They've always been so stoic and so stiff, and like you said, stick in the mud. I'm just like, boring. You're
Yeah.
boring.
I think that's what draws me to like the Drizzt books and like darker fantasy. Is like anything will happen and it'll be a weird ride.
Yeah, I have a sweatshirt that says "chaotic neutral might save your life, might steal your wife," and so that's kind of that's like one of my mottos for my characters is like, might save your life, might steal your wife.
That's beautiful. I love that idea. um, so are there any limitations to morally gray heroes in your experience?
Um, I mean, their only real limitation, their limitations are self-imposed, right? Like,
Yeah.
or author imposed. If you have them care about someone or something, obviously their limitations will exist around like that person or that goal. Um, and if you have a morally gray hero who doesn't have any goals or anything that they care about, I think it's going to be difficult to make a compelling story. It's going to feel kind of aimless. I think I don't know. These are thoughts that are just firing out of my brain rapid fire that I'm not like thinking about hard. So I don't know.
I I always worry that like with some morally gray heroes that people aren't going to love them, or like not everybody's going to like them. It's just how it is. And how do you deal with people who are like, oh, I really hated Zane. He was such an awful person.
Mm. Well, I mean, that's just this is just writing books and telling stories.
Yeah.
Not everyone likes a peach. You know, so it's just the way it is. You can't please everyone, and in fact, you don't want to try to please everyone. Um, being in book writing for a long time now, it's so critically important that you find the niche market that you want to serve and then serve them really, really well. Because then the people who do love morally gray peaches are going to be like, this is the best peach I've ever eaten in my entire life. I love it. And the people who don't like morally gray peaches are going to be like, that is a morally gray peach. It's not for me, so I'm not even going to pick it up, which is fine.
Yeah. I like that, you know. I always feel like some romance authors get like the short end of the stick when it comes to people's reviews, and like people like, oh, this was awful because it didn't match what I need. And I was like, well, why'd you pick it up?
Yeah, that's why it's really important in your cover art and your blurb to like meet your reader's expectations right up front, because you don't want someone who is expecting a chantilly cake to open it up and get like spaghetti and be like, what in the fuck am I reading right now? Sorry.
Oh,
I
you're
don't,
good.
is curse, I mean, we talked about cum earlier, so I assumed it was okay to say
You can
fuck.
curse, yes.
Okay, cool. Cool.
Um, yeah, so I I always just get annoyed when readers don't really take in like the synopsis or like the little blurbs of what the book is about, and then they're like, I was so shocked. I was like, how?
I did it to myself recently. I read Haunting and Hunting Adeline, and I didn't read the blurb at all. Like I got challenged by Book Talk. Book Talk was like, it's the darkest book you'll ever read. And I'm like, okay. They're like, you might not survive it. I'm like, okay. And so I went into it totally blind, just with the trigger warning list, sort of like I knew there was going to be stalking. I knew there was going to be dark themes. I knew there was probably going to be some like non-con,
Yeah.
dub-con, physical abuse, that sort of thing. I did not know that the plot centered around human trafficking. And so, surprise for me.
Yeah. That
Yep. But I didn't go into the review and be like, oh my God, I was so shocked about human trafficking that this book sucks. I hate it. No, that's, man, that was a hard book to read, though. I was emotionally and physically upset.
I see it advertised all the time on like YouTube and Book Talk, and I'm like, I don't know if I could do it, man. Like I like the idea kind of, but
I mean,
um
is not, book one doesn't go that far. Book two is where you're like, well, I'm going to throw up now. Thank you.
good, good. I
Thanks.
never felt like I was gonna throw up reading Brutal Rival, so that's good.
Good.
And
Good.
there's definitely mentions of cannibalism.
There is, yeah. She bites a finger off and chews it right in front of him.
So I made my husband read that little part where she throws up all the body parts.
Mm.
And he's like, what are you reading though? Like,
What?
I thought this was a romantic book.
It is. It is, yeah.
You just
No,
gotta, embrace.
I think I have vomiting in almost every single one of my books that I've ever written, and I don't know why. I don't know why. I'm just thinking back, I'm like, yeah, she vomits in that book. She vomits in that book too. I made this guy vomit. What?
Does somebody vomit in the Chimera Bounty?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Maeve does. Isn't
Uh,
she?
she
Oh,
might.
she almost vomits.
Yeah.
After she swallows the chonga meat, she's like, "Brrrr."
And then she's like, it's kind of tasty though.
Actually, kind of good. Only when in shifted form, not.
So
Oh.
one of the fun aspects of Brutal Rival is you try as the writer, I'm sure, to try and keep the identities of both Scarlet and Zane, like their secret identities, secret for quite a while. Was there ever a point where you're like, oh God, I should just tell everybody now and then not have to deal with like not telling anybody and like obscuring it for most of the book?
So I think, I mean, like Scarlett's identity is present in the
Yes.
blurb.
Yeah.
So the reader knows, and that's part of the like little fun tidbit is like the reader's like, I know something you don't know. Whenever any character is having an interaction with the secret identity one. Zane's secret identity, I do keep for a long time and like drop little tidbits along the way, but that was fun for me to be like, the reader doesn't know who he is and how his secret identity is going to impact the end of the book. So it was a good time. I was grinning like an imp with little devil horns the whole time.
I always got so confused because in the beginning of the book you mentioned Andrew, his alter ego Andrew, and I'm like, what is happening? Who is Andrew though?
Who this? I hope it wasn't too confusing.
No,
I mean,
no.
like it stays, yeah. Now I'm like, I'm the worst author ever, and I just didn't do
You're
this good.
take it back. No, it wasn't like super confusing. It's just like there's more to this, and I don't know what it is yet. Mm.
Right. It's designed to be tantalizing and
Yes.
not like upsetting.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Um, so we already talked about the setting being more of a kind of like gaslight fantasy type of story. Um, but we don't get a look like a view of the larger world here in this book. And we're gonna get that in the other books, I assume, right?
Yeah, so in book 2, they won't even be in the same place. So you'll get a little bit more of a view of like what's going on, and then in book 3, they're going to be in the Upper Kingdom and the palace a lot more. And then in book 4, we don't talk about book 4 because that plot is a mess, and I'm struggling to solve all of its problems.
I take it you're still working on it.
Yeah, well, book 3 is in progress now, but it's pretty. The first 3 were fairly firm in my mind when I started this, and then the fourth one was kind of like, oh, I'll figure it out when I get there, or like I'll figure it out as things come up. And I've been like putting time and effort and thought into it. I'm just like, oh my God, how do I make this an interesting story that's different? And I've got a thought rolling around in my brain, and I'm not going to talk about it. I have a thought rolling around in my brain. I'm not going to talk about it.
I mean, as long as you work it out by the time the book comes out, that's fine. That's all we need.
But yeah.
Um, I'm excited to see more of the Upper Kingdom just because we got so much of the like kind of slums or like the mob controlled area, and we got little glimpses of like the castle and all the rich folks. So I'm excited for that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be super fun. It's gonna be fun. I'll stop there.
So all of the books, okay, I don't know if I can say all because I've only read one of the 4 because the other ones aren't out yet. So we're just gonna ignore that I said that.
That's fine. Book 2 is gonna be coming to ARCs soon enough, so you'll be able to read it.
I'm excited. Yeah.
Mhm.
So how do you decide how much like spice, I guess, a book is gonna get? Because in the end of Brutal Rival, there's a little like scale, a pepper scale or something of the series, and it's like 2.5 or something to, I don't, yeah.
Yeah, I don't decide how much spice a book is going to get. The characters decide how much spice the book is going to get. And that was like a serious thing that happened in Feral Guardian, book 2 in this series, is like the spice is off the charts in this one. It's practically erotica. I'm like, oh my God, you guys just can't keep your hands off each other. Like, what are you doing?
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm over here, the author, be like, we need to move the plot along. And the MMC is just like, go fuck yourself. Like, I'm moving this plot along right here. Like, this is the plot for me. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Um, and then so two of the younger sisters, the two later ones, are they gonna have like grow up moments? Because they're pretty young yet, right?
Um, so Lily is 24. She's the second sister. The third
Hmm.
sister is Elise. She's 23.
Oh, okay.
Uh, and then she's either 23 or 22. I think I might have her birthday like come soon-ish. I want her to be a little more mature. And then the youngest sister, she is 19. So
Okay.
she's a little baby. And yeah, she's gonna have a big, I mean, as loose and wild and not firm as the plans are now for book 4, she has a pretty big grow up moment where she's like, oh my God, I trusted someone and I was wrong and I was dumb and I need to be more careful.
Well, I loved that Scarlett was so like she's lived a really hard life and she's very much an adult who has a very skewed sense of the world because of how she was like, you know, almost murdered at 14.
Right. Yeah. It was really fun to design her because I'm like, take a girl who goes up to age 14 being a like a pampered princess in a palace, suddenly to being like thrown on her knees in the slums, having to give BJs to survive.
Yeah.
Like, what does that do to a person mentally? How does it fuck them up? So
Where on the fucked up scale did we
right.
fall?
How far did we go? Pretty far.
She does. She's pretty spicy sometimes.
Also morally gray. I like
Yes.
them both morally gray.
Well, they fit really well together because, she's sucking his blood at some point and he's like, you know what? It's fine. It's probably fine.
It's probably fine. She might be doing dark magic. That's fine.
She's hot. It's fine. I absolutely loved her like pseudo parents in the book. And I want oh God, why can't I remember her name?
Cecilia.
Cecilia. Yeah, Cecilia and Zane's buddy to get together
Gareth.
so bad. Yeah.
Dude. So I just called you dude. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Dude. Cecilia is named for my dev editor, who is Cecilia. And I've been thinking about it way too much of this like very adorable courtship short story between Cecilia and Gareth that would be like a an in between books 1 and books 2 where like Scarlett and Zane are on their honeymoon time and so Gareth and Cecilia are like running the nest and yeah, yeah. So it's like it would be very slice of life, no murders and gore and stabbings and stuff. Just like she's baking some bread and he's very shy and like trying to figure out like, did you change the bread recipe? Like trying to figure out ways to talk to her, you know?
Do
Yeah,
it. I need this. Yeah, yeah, it'd be so good.
I think a lot of people need it, but especially me.
So they're just so sweet together. And like I get that like Cecilia's husband dies in the book and like you can't throw them together so fast, but the idea is there.
Yeah. I mean, I think an important thing to just note is that like her husband was on the down, like on the
Yeah.
decline for years.
Yeah.
So she was emotionally already in this state where like their relationship was not even close to what it was when they were in love and like thinking about having children, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then not having any.
It seems like when people go through like long terminal illnesses, they mourn for a long time before the person passes. So like it can seem sudden if they move on after.
It can, yeah, but no, I mean, I've experienced this is more serious than I wanted to get. I've experienced both situations where the decline was very long, it was a long time
Yeah.
coming, and the ability to heal afterwards, just because the mourning was already going on for so long, it just came faster.
Yeah.
It doesn't always, that sounds cruel, but like the shocking surprise deaths, those are the ones where it's like I didn't even see it coming, and like you have to go through all the ranges of emotions. But with the longer ones, it's like you get closure, honestly, at the time of death, and it just helps. Oh God, why are we talking about this? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Well, I think you do a really good job of showing that Scarlet is really like surprised by his death. Because she hadn't, she hadn't accepted that he was like dying. And then he passes away and she's like, no, you can't.
Yeah.
So,
Whereas Cecilia was seeing him every single day, taking care of him every single day, and Scarlet was, for that very reason, kind of avoiding him because she didn't want to experience that pain.
yeah. So I like that there's this like emotional turmoil that feels very real world, along with I'm gonna murder a bunch of people.
Yeah. Yeah, I like my books to be a fun time. I like them to feel like a real time, though, too. Like this is a real place that could really exist and real people that live inside it.
I really don't want this to be a real world. That there was too many spider limbs.
Sorry.
um so how did you balance like the violence and like the retribution with like the sex and like the romantic portion of the book? Or did you? I guess.
Um, I mean, I never. Sorry, I'm trying to like formulate this answer in my brain, and I don't know how to do it. So I use Save the Cat as my plotting system, my rough plotting system. I've become familiar enough with that structure that a lot of the times it just naturally easily happens for me. It's kind of the idea where like the up and down progress of like rising tension, and then like a miniature climax, and then a little bit of decline and a dip where like everyone can catch their breath. And so oftentimes sometimes the spicy scenes would be that dip where it's like you're catching your breath from this horrible gruesome action that just occurred. um yeah, I guess, yep, that's how I did it. I didn't do it consciously, I just did. Just
It
did.
seems like you're more of a pantser writer than a plotter, maybe.
um I'm what they call a gardener. It's like I build a trellis, which is my outline, and usually it's like one or two paragraphs for each chapter. And I say like, and I keep my eyes on like, are things rising? Did everything move along in this chapter? Did something happen? And then, I mean, I can pull up the outline that I was working on just now, but it says ridiculous stuff. Where is my outline? Like, he finds her somewhere. I don't know where. He just does. He finds her somewhere. Or like, he's torturing and murdering him somewhere creepy. I don't know where, but somewhere creepy. So
You get the idea. That's perfect.
So I try to leave things kind of open and fluid for stuff to evolve naturally, because as I build the characters who are in the world, like they'll have choices to make. And if I think that choice that is open to them is better than the one that I had planned for them, then I want to go with that choice. And that might change things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm like a gardener. I plant seeds in specific areas and I build a trellis for the plants to grow up, but like where they grow, how they grow, what type of things bloom is kind of up to the characters in the moment as I'm writing the story. I just, yeah, try to let them rule a little bit, which is how Lily and Alistair ended up just fucking all the time.
Just constant, just nonstop.
Now they don't actually, never mind. I'm not gonna spoil anything. Lots of spicy scenes. Lots of spicy scenes.
What are you working on now? Are you still working on this series, or are you working on something else?
Yeah, I'm working on the Princesses of Ruin book 3, so Dark Artificer, or Artificer, however you want to pronounce it. And that's Elise in Nautis's story, which I keep saying his name out loud, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to call him that. I think maybe I want to change his name. There's one or two mentions of him in book 2 that I could still update before like things happen, but like I'm reaching the point where it's like I gotta nail his name down. Can't keep avoiding this.
Sometimes when I write, it seems like the names come first, and then I'm like, oh, that didn't fit this person at all. Oh, well, that was dumb. I have to go back and change every single iteration of this.
Yeah, that's always frustrating when that happens. But yeah, I don't know, saying his name out loud or like using his name in the possessive, I'm just like, this is gross to look at. Like, I don't like this. Ends with S apostrophe S. Yuck.
It's funny that that's your worry.
I don't know. I don't know.
Um, do. So you self-publish these books, right?
You, yeah.
How do you like get the word out there or advertise? Like, I'm always so like intrigued by this.
Yeah, it's hard. There's a couple of different services that I've partnered with in the past. Right now, I'm partnering with Next Step PR to promote the Chimera Bounty audiobook. And they've been really great so far. But a lot of these services, especially for indie authors, are just focused around social media and growing like a platform of like readership on social media platforms. And so that's kind of what I build on my own too. TikTok is definitely where I hang out the most. It's where I definitely engage the most. I actually like that platform and enjoy the content that's on it. So sometimes I'm on it a little too much. But but yeah, it's been like a very, very slow, steady climb of building readership and building these meaningful relationships with lots of people. Doing ARC calls was kind of how I got my first like little fan base to read my books. Now I have a couple of people that I can go to kind of anytime and just be like, hey, I really need a promotion on this book today. And they'll help me out. And that's so great. Like I love that. And then in exchange, of course, like whenever hot new books are coming, I'm just like, hey, here's a free taste. Here's a free taste of the new crack I'm writing.
Okay.
But yeah, and then of course throwing advertising dollars at like Amazon is another way to just kind of prime people. I've used BookFunnel's newsletter swaps a couple of times. I haven't seen a lot of success there though. And I tend to be very picky and like vet everyone that I swap with. So I read their work. And if I'm like, it's not on the same quality level as mine, or it's not like the same kind of content as mine, that sounded very pretentious that I just said. It's not on
It
the same
doesn't though. No, I completely get this because there's a lot of books that just like the quality varies, right? And it's more to do with like if they have editing, like people who help them edit their work usually is what I find. So
Yeah, I have 2 professional editors that I work with, so it helps. And also 8 years of doing this behind me, so that helps too.
So okay. On your website, you have the Chimera series and then you have this series. What are your other books?
I write under another pen name, JD Astra, and those are all sci-fi fantasy that are in sort of a more male-dominated genre.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you were there at DragonCon, you remember. Yeah, so it's called Lit RPG, and it's like a subgenre of science fiction and fantasy where there are like gamified magic systems built into these worlds. Um, and usually the rules of the magic systems are pretty hard, which is why, again, with Brutal Rival, I was like, I want to go fast and loose and just let everybody be able to do whatever kind of magic that I feel like. No rules, no classes, nothing. Um, so yeah, I have 5 different book series that I published with a small press called Shadow Alley Press. They're fantastic. I love them and everything that they do. And yeah, there's no smut, not a drop of smut in any single one of those books that I wrote. And that's real sad to me. It's real sad. I found my true calling here now in the smut slums.
I was so excited to see that there was a lit RPG like romantic like drama book. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, and it's not harem. So
Right?
this is where I'm at.
Yeah. So one of my goals when I started with Shadow Alley Press for a long time, my goal was like, I want to get more women into reading this genre, this lit RPG genre. And as I read more and more books in the genre, I was like, oh, there just isn't a whole lot of like female friendly writing in here, because most of the authors are male and most of them do their very best to portray women in roles and with personalities that are like accurate to real life human females. But unfortunately, lots of authors just fall into the trap of writing a Mary Sue who's blank and boring, and the women who then read the book are just like, well, that is the most boring, bland woman who serves only to be like breasts in the conversation. Like that's her role. Like, great, thank you. Thank you so much. So it can be really off-putting sometimes, even if the story is good and interesting, to just see female representation suck total ass. And I wanted to fix that.
Term.
Yeah, the technical term of sucking total ass.
I love it though, because like all of the lit RPG books that I read are like there's only men in them. Like there's hardly any female characters, which is bizarre to me.
Well, they don't want to fall into the trap of writing a female character bad and then having female readers being like, excuse me, sir. She breasted boobily down the stairs 3 times and that was all she did in the book.
Well, if you can breast boobily down the stairs, you should have some magic powers too, okay?
Right. That is the magic powers, to turn every head in the room. Time slows down as the jiggle physics take effect.
On that note,
sorry.
Thank you so much for talking with me today.
Yeah, of course. It's been a really fun time.
I am super excited for book 2, and that's not out till January though, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So
sorry. Sorry.
I mean, you have 2 book 3 of the Chimera bounty is coming out in November?
It is. Yeah. So it's actually I'm still running arcs for it right now. So if you want to sign up, you can find me on TikTok, go to my link tree. There's like a little sign up sheet to join the arc reader crew. I try to leave those open for like 2 or 3 weeks to get people in, but then I do shut them down after a while because it's a book 3, and if you haven't read book 1 and 2 and you try to sign up for book 3, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be in trouble. That's like 320,000 words that you're going to have to cram down your throat in a couple of days.
Yeah. So I'm buying book 2 soon. So I'm excited to get into that and then immediately have book 3 available.
Book 2 was, sorry, I don't want to take up more of your time. I feel like an asshole, but now I want to gush a tiny bit. So since book 1 was like my very first fantasy romance that I wrote, I got a lot of things wrong, and I was still coming from this place of writing sci-fi fantasy with no smut. And so it was just not quite to market. But book 2, I did my homework really, really well and definitely hit it a lot stronger with book 2. Yeah.
Okay.
It's good and bingeable too.
I dig it though. Like I really enjoyed book 1, so I'm excited for book 2,
I'm glad. I'm not saying that book 1 was bad. It's just that I tried to make I guess I tried to make a niche that didn't quite exist yet with book 1. I like took a lot of different elements and tried to cram them into a book and be like, don't you like this? And some people really do. But the cover and the blurb like I think they just confuse people. Are like, what is this? I don't know. And it doesn't fit nicely into the current niches that exist. So I hacked myself.
Well, you're just carving a path. It's fine. I expect more
Yeah.
people to be writing like this, you know.
I hope so. I hope there'll be some more lit RPG smut in the future. Like, I know a couple of female lit RPG authors. I should just like nudge them with my elbow and be like, "Hey, girl, why don't you put a little bit of sexy times in your in your next book series?
Yeah, yeah.
Do it up."
Thinking of a couple right now myself. So
I bet I could convince Don Chapman to write a spicy lit RPG. I
the
bet I could
fact that
convince
she
him.
hasn't confuses me. I guess she's writing to a specific audience, though, to be fair.
Yeah, and she's doing a good job doing it. You know, like
Yeah.
so that was one of the reasons why I definitely switched genres. Was like I wasn't hitting, I wasn't finding my audience in the market. So
Yeah.
and it was obvious because I was like constantly pulling back on these like spicy romantic things that I wanted to do, and yeah, yeah.
I think you're gonna find that people love it, that they need more of this. So yeah. Well, thank you so much. And everybody should go check out these two books. I'm telling you, they're great.
Yeah, you can find all my work on Amazon or on my website, www.emberholtwrites.com. I also have like a Discord you can join and chat with me. I'm very personable, I promise.
Well, thank you again and have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you so much.